Good morning and welcome back to the channel. This video is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research, make your own decisions. So this video is not really going to be about cryptocurrency. So I just want to let everybody know that on the front end. So if this is not going to be for you, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to be covering something else, some very significant stories that are happening right now. And the reason that I'm doing this is because these things have so many implications to financial markets in general across the board, but especially to financial markets. This was why I covered the Russia situation so in depth for months before the invasion happened, which I did not see the invasion coming. I did see some type of conflict with the US and with Russia, more economic type warfare between those two countries. But that's why I covered that so in depth, because of all the different implications that it would have if there were to be some type of issue between Russia and the US. The economic implications, right? So I think that covering crypto and the crypto market without looking at what else is happening all around the world and other events that are unfolding that could have major implications on financial markets, I feel like it's crypto content without the broader context of everything else happening is just, it's incomplete in my opinion. So I just wanted to make that point and explain why it is that I do cover these other things. I cover the things that I think are the most important things to be covering. So to that point, I still believe we're going to see a rug pull with some of these public officials. I feel stronger about it now than I did back when I originally said it. Now, I covered this in depth before the Russia invasion of Ukraine. And when Russia invaded Ukraine, that automatically became the most important story because of all the different implications that are involved there. You have nuclear threats, you have massive economic threats, you have supply chain issues, you have an energy crisis that could potentially unfold because of how much Europe depends on Russia for oil. And there's just a lot of other things, you know, the BRICS nations as a whole. There's a lot of things that could have. There's biolabs in Ukraine, apparently, right? So there's a lot of things that could come out of that situation. And it became the most important story. And that was why I covered that specifically in a general sense, not diving into the nuts and bolts there because there's too much propaganda coming out from both sides to be able to determine what's real and what's not. So that's my take on that. So I pivoted away from the rug pull scenario, but I still do believe that's going to happen. And the things that have come out over the last few days, over the last few weeks, make me feel even stronger that something like that is coming. Now, I made two main calls on this channel, one of which was Russia, Putin, and the petrodollar were going to play a big role in the collapse of the dollar as the reserve currency. Now, when I say the collapse of the dollar as the reserve currency, what I mean is it's no longer the sole reserve currency, and the BRICS nations begin to de-dollarize. I would view that as a collapse of the dollar of its current status, right? And I don't think that it will stop there, because I think that countries moving away from the dollar, especially the BRICS nations, considering it's India, China, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Brazil. I mean, these are not just like small insignificant countries to the global economic situation. I think that will have such a bad impact on the dollar that I can't really imagine it not continuing to fall further if something like that were to happen, which I do anticipate something like that happening at some point in time. I don't think that the dollar is going to be gone forever, but I do think that it will have a diminished role in the future global economy. So that's what I mean by that. So I made that call. Russia, Putin, the petrodollar, going to play a big role, or going to be the cause of the fall of the dollar as we know it. And then also that we were going to see some type of a rug pull with public officials, because I believe they've been set up as the fall guys for the collapse of the U.S. empire. And these are my opinions. I have backed these up with a lot of sources and a lot of information. I'm not just spewing opinions and not providing documentation and sources to back up what it is that I'm saying. This was why I originally said the thing about Russia and the petrodollar, is because the media was reporting on it months and months ago, and it looked like there was too much there for something not to come out of that. So The reason why I still do believe that we are going to see a rug pull with these public officials at some point is because of what's been happening here recently. So I want to take you through this timeline here. February 1st, the New York Times sues the State Department to get access to Hunter Biden's information. Now, on the 24th of February, about 3 weeks later, Russia invades Ukraine. Now, 2 weeks after that, on March 8th, Victoria Nuland went in front of Congress and she testified, and that's when Rubio asked her about biofacilities in Ukraine, to which she said, yes, there are, and we're concerned that they might get into the hands of the Russians. That's probably not verbatim exactly what she said, but that's a general summary of what she said. Now, 10 days later, the New York Times, remember, so February 1st, the New York Times sues the State Department to get access to this information. Now, on March 17th, once the conflict is already underway and once Victoria Nuland has gone in front of Congress to say, yes, there are biofacilities in Ukraine, then the New York Times comes out on March 17th and says, yes, the laptop and the content is real. Then, a week or so later, the New York Post comes out on the 26th saying that there are documents that confirm that Hunter Biden's investment firm was funding some research in these labs. Goldman Sachs' name was also thrown into that as well. Now, on the 30th, the Washington Post, inside Hunter Biden's multi-million-dollar deal with Chinese energy corporations or Chinese energy companies. Now, a day after that, so this was just a couple days ago. And look at the sources that I'm using, guys. New York Times, Washington Post, CNN. CNN, from Brianna Keller, who's one of the biggest homers for the Democratic Party that exists. And just to reiterate, guys, I don't believe in our political system anymore. I did not vote in the 2021 governor's race here. It was a pretty big election, too. I'm not going to vote in 2022, and I'm not going to vote in 2024 because I don't believe in the system anymore. I believe it has zero legitimacy, and that's that. So this is not a political thing, all right? So Brianna Keller, this is very, very bad for the president, meaning the feds looking into Hunter Biden's situation and potential charges coming. I do believe there's already been a grand jury, and this has been going on for quite some time. And I get the feel that the Bidens have been set up, that they were set up with these corrupt business dealings. And if you think about it, how do you think, and I don't know, I'm assuming, how do you think these politicians go out and find these corrupt business dealings? Do you think that they're going out and making calls themselves and cold calling and trying to set themselves up with, certain, corporations or financial institutions to cut these sweetheart deals that are going to pay them out some insane amount? Or I would assume that they have lobbyists, special interest, and individuals that are very close, that are the middle guys, that are really doing all of the connecting one person to another and brokering the deal and so on and so forth. And so if I had to guess, given what's coming out right now, given the fact that the New York Times, the Washington Post, and CNN are all turning, and they're now starting to come out and say, ooh, all these things are real. Oh, yeah, I know the IMF just said that the dollar is losing status as the global reserve currency to the Chinese yuan, or losing ground to the Chinese yuan for the global reserve currency. But guess what? The president's son actually had multi-million-dollar business dealings with Chinese energy companies. So why are these things coming out at the same time? This is not the same type of a situation where the media lies about something and then a year later they tell the truth about it. Because of all the other things that are happening right now, the situation that's happening geopolitically, what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, what's happening with China backing Russia, and China and Russia working together, there's too much here for something not to be going on. And the fact that this story is coming out now, guys, this investigation's been going on for years at this point. And the laptop and all this information has been out there, all right? Why is it that right now this is starting to come out? And I'm going to give you my honest take. I believe they've been set up. I believe they were set up. And guys, I said this many months ago. Politicians aren't making decisions. That's my opinion. And I think they're on a need-to-know basis. You know, worldview really matters at a time like this, because if you genuinely view politicians as being the decision makers in any capacity, then, you know, you're going to come to different conclusions. I mean, you might be right, but I think it's becoming harder and harder to make the case that politicians have any decision-making ability whatsoever anymore on big issues. Maybe on smaller, you know, really insignificant things, but I don't think on big issues that they have any decision-making ability. I think they are doing what they are told to do. They are saying what they are told to say, and they are just going with the show. So how out of the realm of possibility would it be that Hunter Biden, that Joe Biden's brother were set up with very specific business dealings with specific countries? There were always these dealings, and all the documents and all the evidence was always supposed to come back up at some point in time. And it feels like this is that time, given everything else that's going on, given the fact that that CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post is all coming out and saying what they're saying. It's just too convenient for me. And so I'm going to tell you what I think that is happening. I think that this is an intentional effort to delegitimize the U.S. government, our democratic republic, if you want to call it that. Because what I just said to you when I said, I don't believe in the system anymore, I have no intention of voting, they have no more legitimacy, the reason that I said that is because I'm observing reality, and I'm looking at what's going on right now. And I've been looking at what's been going on for the past few years, and that's been my conclusion, is the system no longer has any more legitimacy. And I think that that's, to some degree, intentional. I think that it's a part of the broader demoralization effort on the U.S., on the U.S. citizens, and for the country as a whole. And I don't mean to discount what's happening in other countries, guys. I understand that there's very similar things that are happening in other countries as well. There's a little bit more significance with the U.S., mainly because I'm here, but also because of the long-standing status as the global superpower, and because the dollar has the reserve currencies. That's why I'm focusing on that right now. But it seems like everything that we're seeing, it's like we're supposed to be seeing this. It's like they want you to see how corrupt these business dealings are. If they didn't, they just wouldn't report on it. Or they would, but it would be a back page story. You wouldn't really hear about it. They wouldn't make a big deal about it. They could just lie about it. I think they'll lie forever. They never really have to come out and tell the truth. They can do whatever they want to do. You know, they can tell you up is down, black is white. They can tell you anything. But the fact that they're coming out and telling the truth about this now, and the fact that on CNN, they were like, this is very, very bad for the president. They brought this analyst, this expert or whoever, this random pundit on, and he said, this is really starting to gain steam. And there is a realistic chance of federal charges, which would put the president in unprecedented political territory. What? And whether or not that happens, why are they foreshadowing that it seems like something is going to come out of this? Guys, people on New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, I believe even on Fox News and other, outlets, I don't think that they're just talking off the cuff. I know that CNN's not. I mean, they're repeating, because that's why they all say the exact same things. They're repeating what they're told to repeat, and they're reporting on what they're told to report on. And so the pivot with this situation at this time, if these situations weren't happening, let's just say that there wasn't crisis, and there wasn't a war in Russia and Ukraine, and there was no threat of the dollar losing global reserve currency status. If none of that was happening and these stories were coming out, I would say this is probably just the same as everything else. They lie about it. A year later, once the truth starts to come out, they're fine telling the truth about it. But given the context of everything else that's happening and the implications, think about this. Think about, let's just say, and guys, I don't even necessarily think that they are going to bring charges on Hunter Biden. I'm kind of 50-50 at this point. I think it could go either way. But the fact that the way the media is covering it makes me start to feel like there's a stronger chance. Before the media pivoted like they've pivoted right now, I didn't think that there was much of a chance at all. I just forgot about it. I just assumed nothing was going to happen. But the fact that the media has pivoted the way that they have at this time, given all those other things that are going on, coincidentally, with China, with Russia, with Ukraine, it's like this whole web of corruption is starting to come to the surface. And you have to ask yourself why. And in my opinion, I don't think that the good guys are going to win the day, guys. I hate to inform you that. I don't think that the good guys are going to show up and, they're going to right this ship and corruption is going to be, people are going to be held accountable for the right reasons. I think more so it would be put somebody in office who's heavily compromised, who we can expose at any point in time. We have enough information on him and his family and the corrupt business dealings that they've had with these other countries that we're essentially helping out at this point. They're becoming stronger, we're becoming weaker by the decisions that we make, the policies that we implement. But yet there's also, with that very administration that's implementing those policies, there's also corrupt business dealings with those very countries that the New York Times, Washington Post, and CNN are all now reporting on. So this is what it looks like to me. This is going to be one of the things that is used to bring down the U.S. empire. What better way, if the goal is to bring down the U.S. empire and to no longer have the dollar as the reserve currency, if that's the goal, a goal, a part of the bigger goal, which is the financial reset and the reorganization of the power structure globally, which seems like that's what's going on right now. The implementation of the new system, all that. But if as a part of that end result, you have to have the fall of the U.S. empire and the fall of the dollar as the sole reserve currency. If those two things have to happen as a part of the bigger objective, what better way to do that than to have somebody in office who was so compromised, and it was so out in the open, and the corruption was so in your face. And if you think about we've watched corruption be normalized, so there'd be no, when you're looking at this, it's almost hard to believe that anything would come out of this because nothing ever comes out of anything in Washington, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, and whatever corruption it is that's going on. Nothing ever really comes out of it, so we just assume that it's always going to be that way. And we just assume because it's always been that way that it's never going to change. But I would just say that if the goal and the intention is to bring down the U.S. empire and to remove the dollar as the sole reserve currency, then what better way to do that than exposing corruption at the highest level of the U.S. government and corruption with business dealings with the very countries that were starting to take the lead as the U.S. is starting to decline, showing that our leaders sold us out to these countries, and now these countries are taking over, and we're in a state of decline. What better way to demoralize the U.S., to end the U.S. empire, and to kick off the new world in where the U.S. isn't running everything all around the world and, engaging in regime change wars and, trying to enforce their own political structure on other countries. What better way to do that than to have those individuals in office at this point in time, and then when the time is right, expose all of the corruption and completely collapse trust and legitimacy in the U.S. government. I can't think of a better way to do it. So that's my official call. I still think we're going to see a rug pull. I think that they've been set up as the fall guys. I genuinely believe they've been set up because it's too convenient. There's too many coincidences for me. Whenever I see, a string of coincidences all happening at the same time, that all have connections, that all have major implications, it's too coincidental for me. So I think that they've been set up as the fall guys. Now, that's not to say I think Hunter Biden is definitely going to get charged, because I don't know whether or not that's going to happen. But I do think that this ultimately ends with the president, with his son, with numerous other people in Washington being thrown under the bus and being the fall guys, set up as the fall guys. So that way, attention is taken off of the banks, attention is taken off of the big billionaires, and attention is taken off of the real people who are actually making decisions, even though they portray these public officials as being the people who are, quote unquote, making decisions, which I don't believe that, but that's my opinion. You might have a difference of opinion. So just wanted to throw that out there. That's my take. That's what I see coming over the throughout 2022. I don't know exactly what it would look like or how it would unfold. And I especially don't know what it would look like after something like that happened. No idea. But that's how I see this ending, because I believe somebody has to take the fall. And I think that it's been set up for the politicians or a handful of politicians to take the fall. And that's what it looks like. So that's all I have. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Understand the topic that we're on and the platform that we're on. You might have to be overly general. Or if you have a different take, let me know. Send me an email. Guys, I try to look at every single angle. I try to run my own like simulations. Okay, how is this going to play out? Okay, what if this happened? What would be the effects? Would that achieve the particular result that they're going for? Yeah, and I try to play out as many scenarios as possible that are realistic. And I try to come to the scenario that makes the most sense for me, that's going to check the most boxes for the main objective that is going on right now. And if you think about the main objective that is happening right now, I think that this would check so many boxes. So I don't think that it would be done for the purpose of cleaning up DC or because people decided to do the right thing. I think it would be done in an intentional effort to collapse the U.S. empire. And I think that it was set up this way. I don't believe things are happening by accident right now, guys. I think there's way too much at stake and too much money, too much power, too many resources. You know, there is way too much at stake, and this is too many years in the making for things to be happening by accident. It's not an accident Joe Biden's in office. It's not an accident these reports are coming out right now. It's not an accident that any of these other things are happening, in my opinion, because I don't believe for people who run the world and who make decisions for the world, I don't think you would leave things like this to chance. I wouldn't if I was in their position. I'm not saying I would do it exactly the way they're doing it, but I wouldn't leave things of this magnitude to chance. I just wouldn't. I would have everything accounted for. So I think they have everything accounted for. That's just my take. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research and make your own decisions. I will put out probably another video this evening talking more about the crypto market, my take on everything. I'm extremely bullish. I don't know how many times I can say that. I'm a permabull, always will be. Because the circumstances around the new system and the implementation of the new system and how much they need the new system because it's their system, those factors aren't going to change. So my investment thesis in regards to that is not going to change. But I'll put out a video, if not tonight, tomorrow. Sorry, I need to have a better schedule. But that's that. Take care. Have a good day. I'll see you in the next video.